everybody, it's Cambria Hebert, and today I am bringing you this video because this morning on Facebook I said I was thinking about releasing the first chapter of my upcoming novel, #Nerd, and I asked if you guys wanted me to put the first chapter on my website or if you wanted a video, and like every single one of you said a video. So here I am. So I hope this is what you wanted. I look kind of crazy. I'm growing my hair out, so had to tame it down with this fun headband here. Anyway, so yeah, I'm here to tell you about Nerd. Nerd is the first book in my # series. It is a new adult college sports romance, and that's pretty much what it is. As you can see, I've got my Romeo hoodie back here. Romeo is the main character. He's number 24. He's a big man on campus at Alpha U. He's a football player, and he may or may not, I can't tell you, fall in love with a nerd. So, you all pretty much know this. So, I put the ARC, which is an advanced reader copy, on my daughter's Kindle. Yes, I don't even have a Kindle, my daughter does. I put it on here, and as you can see, the formatting's all wonky, so if you got an ARC from me, and this is what it looks like kind of wonky, forgive me. It's just an ARC. So anyway, I'm going to read you the first chapter, and here's the cover for anybody who hasn't seen it. Isn't it pretty? So, yeah, so that's Nerd. So, who's ready? All right, and at the beginning of every chapter in Nerd, there's going to be a notification, an app notification. You know, everybody with the smartphones and in college, this university, Alpha University, has an app, and it was a way for the teachers and the staff to get out like messages to the teachers, things like that. Well, the Buzz Boss, he took over, and he still, you know, passes along some faculty announcements, but mostly it's like a big gossip line. So at the beginning of every chapter, I don't know if you can see, there's going to be an Alpha Buzz feed. There's a notification. So, and it goes along with the book. So I will let you know. The first Alpha BuzzFeed notification says, football season is in full swing here at Alpha U. Buckle up, ladies. Number 24 is about to take this season for a ride. And we start out with Rimmel. Rimmel. Being nervous was stupid. I wasn't a stupid person. Even still, I couldn't shake the nerves coiling in the pit of my stomach like a cornered, poisonous snake. The paper clutched in my hand trembled like the coloring leaves that dotted the trees outside in the cool autumn air. I didn't want to be here. I'd probably rather be anywhere else. But the choice wasn't mine today. In fact, it wasn't going to be between the hours of 5 and 7 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday y'all know. I'm not. Let me just disclaimer. # I am not a narrator. Okay. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the foreseeable future. Saying no wasn't an option. This job was presented to me as something I had to do in order to keep my scholarship. Considering none of the other scholarship recipients that I knew of were practically ordered to tutor struggling students, I wondered if this really was a requirement. Not like I would say anything, though. I hated confrontation. It made my stomach hurt. And I certainly wasn't going to argue with the dean over what I needed to do to keep my free ride. So I agreed. It was only a few hours a week, right? I'd get the points for doing a good deed. Inwardly, I cringed. Everyone knows the nice guy always finishes last. Once I was good and committed to the tutoring, I was given a sheet of paper, the same sheet I was now crushing in my nervous hand, with a list of subjects the student needed help with. Math, English, and history. Geez, it was like half this person's schedule. Did they do no studying on their own? Then I saw the name. It was typed neatly at the top of the paper, right there in black and white. It appeared so simple, just letters arranged in a row. I remember being slightly shocked the second I read his name that fireworks didn't appear overhead and a marching band didn't storm through the hall playing the university's fight song. "You want me to tutor Roman Anderson?" I'd squeaked, and the pathetic sound reminded me of the nickname my nervously high school voice had earned me in high school. What? Didn't make sense. Redo! "You want me to tutor Roman Anderson?" I'd squeaked, and the pathetic sound reminded me of the nickname my nervously high voice had earned me in high school. Mouse. But this wasn't high school, and I didn't squeak. Okay, not much. Anymore. "Is there a problem with that?" the dean had asked, choosing to ignore my shock. "Yes, he's like way out of my league." I cleared my throat again, just to be sure my voice was normal when I spoke. "I guess I'm just surprised he needs a tutor." There was no reason to even pretend I didn't know exactly who he was. Everyone knew Romeo. Being the incredible athlete that he is, football takes up a great deal of time. "We thought it would be best if he had some additional help with his academics," the dean replied. "We?" I asked. "Myself and the coach." Ah. So basically, Mr. Perfect was failing, and the school was freaking out because it was football season and they needed their best player and crowd drawer on the field. And who better to stick with the job? The scholarship girl with the perfect average, the girl with no life. And so here I was, sitting at a table in the university library, waiting on Mr. Perfect. I glanced at the watch fastened around my wrist, then I checked the time again, against the large clock hanging against the wall. The times matched up. Romeo was late. "Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" I snorted. She didn't really snort like that. That's just my impression. It was so loud it startled a girl at the nearby table. She jerked back in her seat, causing her chair to teeter dangerously backward and hover over the ground. I watched as she grappled for the table ledge, her hands grasping instead to the thick open book before her. The book wasn't a very good anchor. She yanked it right off the table as her chair barreled to the ground. The chair, the girl, and the book made quite the clatter when they hit the ground. Everyone in the general area turned to stare. You know you're a clumsy person when you cause other people to fall down. I started to get up to help her, but the daggers she shot out of her eyes froze me in my tracks. I sat back down. Her face was flaming red as she huffed to her feet and packed up her stuff. Before storming off, she picked up the large book, and I had a sudden vision of her swinging it at my head. Instead, she wrapped her arms around it and glared at me again. "Sorry," I whispered. If her stomps to the other side of the library were any indication, I was pretty sure I was not forgiven. Well, that was eventful. And a waste of time. I glanced at my watch again and wondered if I would get out of tutoring if he didn't bother showing up. Since I was already here, I figured I could at least do some of my work, so I bent down to retrieve my notebook out of my bag. When I sat up, I saw him. He was standing just inside the glass doors that led outside. His shaggy blonde hair was darker than usual because it looked damp. The ends of his hair curled up at the base of his neck above the collar of his jacket. A navy blue backpack was slung over one shoulder, and his insanely large hand was curled around the strap, holding it in place. Romeo was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that tapered into a narrow waist. He wasn't a bulky black guy. He played too many sports for that. But even so, it was obvious his body was all muscle. He was looking around, his blue eyes sweeping the room, likely looking for his tutor. I felt my cheeks heat when he glanced my way, and I ducked my head. But then I realized this wasn't the time to be shy. I needed to tell him I was his tutor. Holy hell, I was going to get to talk to him. Embarrassment burned the back of my throat. Talking to guys wasn't something I did very often. I looked back up to wave at him, but Romeo had already looked away. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't very noticeable. I wasn't the kind of girl that drew eyes and held a stare. I watched him another minute as he looked over his shoulder at the tables on the other side of the room. The girl who fell out of her chair was watching him, her eyes eating up his face. Could she be any more obvious? Romeo caught her looking, and his mouth pulled into a slow smile. I bit the inside of my lip as little butterflies fluttered around in my stomach. He wasn't even looking at me with that charming half smile, and I was affected. Ugh. I did not have time for this. I snatched the paper with his name and information off the table and marched toward him. Halfway there, I collided with the corner of an empty table, and the unforgiving edge jammed into my hip bone. In the center of the table was a cup filled with pens and pencils, and the force of impact knocked it over. Writing utensils rolled across the wooden surface, and some rained down on the floor. Sharp pain burned through my hip, and I drew back, fighting the urge to double over as I rubbed at the sore spot. That was going to leave a bruise. Doing my best to ignore the pain, I walked around the table to where the pencils were scattered on the floor. Bending down, I began scooping them up with my hand. One pencil had rolled farther away than the others, and I had to stretch my arm all the way out to reach for it. Just as I was about to snatch it up, 2 overly large feet wearing a pair of Nikes appeared right beside me. I pushed my glasses up on my nose and followed a pair of jean-clad legs all the way up past the familiar jacket to full lips and a chiseled face. "Need a hand?" he said, tipping the corner of his lips. Amusement sparked in his jewel-like blue eyes. I opened my mouth to reply, but no sound came out. I tried again. A little squeak escaped instead of actual words. I slapped my lips together and went back to collecting pencils. This is why I preferred animals to people. So much easier to talk to. A rich chuckle floated over my head and my cheeks heated even more. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if my hair caught on fire from the force of my embarrassment. He crouched down and reached for the rogue pencil at the same time I did. Our fingers collided. Electricity jolted through my hand and bolted up my arm. Shocked, I gasped and fell back. All the pencils in my hand clattered to the floor around me. Romeo gave me an odd look and then picked up everything in like 3 seconds flat. I guess having large hands like that is useful. When I realized I was just sitting on the floor like a complete weirdo, I scrambled to my feet and looked at him. He was already turning away. "Wait," I said. He glanced at me again. I held up the severely wrinkled paper. "I'm your tutor." The doubt in his eyes kind of made me mad. Did he think I wasn't smart enough to tutor him? "See?" I demanded, shoving the paper in the space between us. That half-smile thing he did resurfaced, and he took the paper out of my grasp. "What'd this paper ever do to you?" he said, taking in its crumpled appearance. I scowled. For starters, it was forcing me to talk to him. He sighed, and I thought he muttered something beneath his breath, but I couldn't hear what it was. "All right then, Teach," he said, motioning for me to take the lead. "Let's get this over with." Obviously, he didn't want to be here. That made 2 of us. So that was it. And as I said, I am not a narrator. And hopefully my jumbled reading didn't distort chapter 1 for you and you actually feel maybe interested in reading it. I don't know. But just know that if you read it on your own, you'll have your own flow of it in your head and you won't have my voice like all over the place. So, and hopefully you don't hear my dog over here rolling around on the ground and her heavy mouth breathing. It's not Darth Vader, it's my dog. She's fat and gross and old. But we love her anyway. So that is the first chapter of Nerd. It comes out November 3rd. I hope you guys are super excited. I know I am. I hope you guys enjoy Romeo and Rimmel. And if you do, leave me a review. Thanks. I'll talk to you later. Bye.